how to keep. Is there any, is there none such nowhere known, some bow or brooch or braid or brace, lace, latch or catch or key to keep back beauty, keep it, beauty, 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 from vanishing away?
This is a portrait of a man who never compromised, who never softened or smudged or watered down what he was doing to make it more acceptable to a conventional taste, who was true to his own ideals and his own nature, both in writing his own kind of poetry and practicing his own kind of religion. Gentle and self-effacing in his personal life, in his life as priest and poet, he was made of stainless steel. Yet who, when we look back, has spoken more finely and more truly about man's place in the world, the Victorian world or ours? When Laertes in Hamlet is being given good advice by that long-winded but quite sensible old gentleman Polonius, one of the things he says to him is, "To thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." Agreed, but what is it to be true to one's own self? Certainly it's not the same thing as merely being selfish, which would inevitably involve being false to other people, right and left. No, the notion of being true to oneself implies that one's nature is perfectly adapted for certain kinds of achievement, certain kinds of usefulness, and, the religious believer will say, certain kinds of worship of God and oneness with him.
As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame, as tumbled over rim in roundy wells stones ring, like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells, selves, goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying, what I do is me, for that I came. I say more, the just man justices, keeps grace, that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father, through the features of men's faces.
A vision of the divine beauty of creation, like the one that Hopkins lived by, seems curiously marginal in our essentially bureaucratic society. Industrialized democracies have put man at the center. They find it equally hard to find room for nature. Plants and animals are there simply to be exploited, and for God, whose existence seems to deny their basic beliefs. Democracy itself exerts a pressure to conform, to agree. It's ruled by agreement after all. And the ideas that dominate a democracy tend in consequence to be broad simplifications. A society like ours relies heavily on persuasion, on selling its doctrines to the widest possible public. And this was just as true of the 19th century. So when a mass democracy produces a minority artist, and worse still, a religious artist, what does it do with him? It can persecute him, as happens in a number of countries. It can ignore him, one of the things that have happened to Hopkins. It can set him apart in a little glass case and pay lip service to him, and that too has happened to Hopkins. What it finds so very difficult to do is to understand and accept him. Knowing all this, and despite it, Gerard Manley Hopkins remained true to the inner vision that sustained him, true to the nature that he recognized within himself.
I have desired to go where springs not fail, to fields where flies no sharp and sided hail, and a few lilies blow. And I have asked to be where no storms come, where the green swell is in the havens dun, and out of the swing of the sea.
If Gerard Manley Hopkins seemed a stranger to society, that was the role he chose for himself. It wasn't in any way dictated by the circumstances of his life. He was a child of the suburbs, brought up in a well-off, cultivated Victorian family circle, a background of security and distinction. After Highgate School, where he was a star pupil winning a gold medal for Latin verse, he moved on to Balliol and found that he loved Oxford passionately.
Towery city and branchy between towers, cuckoo echoing, bells swarmed, lark charmed, rook racked, river rounded.
He was blissfully sensitive to beauty, and in the Oxford of the 1860s it was all around him.
For a certain time, I am astonished at the beauty of a tree, shape or effect. Then when the passion, so to speak, has subsided, it is consigned to my treasury of explored beauty and acknowledged with admiration and interest ever after.
Beauty for Hopkins was a key word and a key concept. He thought of beauty not just as an ingredient in the things